Gregor, you're back from spring training. I'm heading down. Probably will be there by the time some of the people who are listening to this are listening to this. And the Blue Jays are wrapping it up. I mean, it is the middle of March, but there's only 2 weeks until opening day on March 27th. And so our spring training stories are a little more advanced, I guess, than they usually are at this time of the month. But the big story, I guess, before we get to any of the mailbag questions, is the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. news. It has leaked out somehow that Vladdy asked for $500 million in present value, which is more than Shohei Ohtani got, but only about 2/3 of what Juan Soto got. Um, Before I ask you your opinion on the story, I want to ask you your opinion on the story coming out, because it certainly feels like there is a design behind the release of this information.
Yeah, I think I would look at it from kind of a pessimistic standpoint. If you're a Blue Jays fan and hoping that a deal comes down, I mean, I think some people, when they saw that news yesterday, there was a sense of optimism because it did show that maybe the Jays and Guerrero were a little bit closer than maybe we would have been led to believe originally. But the fact that this is coming out, I mean, somebody obviously wanted this out there. And the fact that there is now dueling PR things happening in the media out in the open, even though it's through anonymous sourcing, that's not a good sign. That to me is showing that at least one side is digging in quite clearly. And look, I don't know that it came from the Jays. Obviously, John Heyman at the New York Post and Ken Rosenthal at the Athletic have their sources. But it does certainly seem awfully convenient that, a week ago, Vladimir Guerrero came out and did an interview with ESPN Deportes. And then a week later, we get this additional information. So it certainly seems like someone is trying to do damage control, although I'm not exactly sure why, because I think this is damage control that's actually potentially going to make things worse. I think there is a group of people who will look at this and hold it against Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for not signing. But I think there's just as many people who are looking at this and being like, okay, if you're willing to pay $450 million in present day value, why aren't you going up to 500? Because it is only a difference of 3.5 million essentially per year on such a long-term deal. So yeah, whoever's doing that damage control might want to rethink their strategy.
Yeah, and that's, for me, it appears as though the um, thinking behind releasing this information is so that the fans see, oh, Vlad's just greedy. You see, he wanted too much money. How could we pay him more than Shohei Ohtani, to sort of turn public opinion against Vlad, and maybe not towards Rogers, because I don't know that public opinion will ever turn towards Rogers, but to have people stop thinking, oh, here's Rogers just being cheap again.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why, if you're Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I mean, there's certainly a chance that that's something that can eventually be held against the organization. I mean, he would know essentially if it came from someone in his camp. It also would be a curious thing for him to leak, and then the other part of that, he's been relatively transparent. I mean, you can argue with the terminology that he's used from time to time, and he said, right after he got the camp that him and the Jays never got close, and the last podcast we were debating the semantics of that because of what Ross Atkins was saying. But still, I mean, he's been very transparent in what he has said for the most part in terms of like he had a number. He even later in the ESPN Deportes kind of hinted that it was something that started with a five. He didn't say how far into it, but I mean, he's been relatively forthcoming. As much as can be expected for someone in his position. He's not going to show all his cards. So, that leads everyone to assume that these leaks are coming from the Jays side, and it's probably exactly, went down the way that you kind of described there. And that is dangerous territory because you could offend your star player very easily. And these are all little things that can build and lead to ultimately what he wants to do. And clearly, he wants to become a free agent and see what else is out there.